acknowledged as Hollywood's master of the action genre, and perhaps the founder of the true modern-day action movie. We welcome John McTiernan. John, tell us, if you will, where'd you grow up?
Way upstate New York, mostly in Albany.
You said you were out on the farm. You were a farm boy, is that correct?
Yeah, we lived north of Utica in the Adirondacks.
And
I was about, I don't know, 12.
and did you think at 12 years old you were going to be involved in the movie business?
No, I wanted to be a doctor then.
Because we know that your dad was involved in music, and you were exposed to a lot of those things at a very early age. We just wondered if that was just sort of passed on from generation to generation.
Well, I guess obviously exposure to theater did open or make a lot of things possible.
When one of the things that we know that you did, you went to Juilliard, is that correct? And when you went to a prep school, could you tell us about that little part of your life? I know that's probably before you did much, but people might be interested to know what Exeter was like.
I wasn't the appropriate student. No, let's move on to something else.
Okay. Well, what happened when you got to Juilliard? What drove you from New York, which is your home, and you seem to still feel comfortable in New York, to bring you out to California? What brought you out here?
Oh, I went to the American Film Institute, which is a graduate school. It was in Beverly Hills. Now it's in Los Angeles. It's moved east about 15 miles, but it was in there's a mansion that's in 1 million movies, and the school started there.
Well, who did you?
At the time, it had very few students. It was, I don't know, they took in like 35 or 40 kids a year, and that was all.
Wow. Now let me ask you this: you started from American Film Institute, where you attended. You then went into doing commercials, did you not? About 200 of them. Would there be anything that people might remember that?
It was sort of the other order. It was how we paid the rent while I was going to grad school. So I was doing it all at the same time.
Are there some famous ads or?
Oh Lord, no. Ridley and Tony Scott have done famous commercials. I have done no famous commercials.
Well, let me ask you this part. Who did you meet at AFI or in New York that mostly affected your career? Who were the people that really made a difference and helped you along the way?
Nina Foch, who is an actress and a teacher, and Jan Kadar, who's a Czech filmmaker. I worked for him for a couple of years as his assistant at the school.
Now, he's the one that made you memorize all these different movies, the plot lines and everything. Is that what?
No, not the plot lines. No. Plot lines are easy. What he used to make me memorize was the shots. He'd say, "Okay, learn that movie." And by learn that movie, he meant you sit down with a bunch of pile of paper and some pencils and write shot for shot the movie from memory. I learned a bunch of movies that way. I learned 8.5 that way, which is a pretty complex film. I learned not Barry Lyndon. Clockwork Orange I learned. His notion was that if you really want to be a filmmaker, you have to get that conversant with you have to be able to carry that much in your mind. If you wanted to be a world-class musician, an instrumentalist, a player of something, piano or violin or something, you'd have dozens, maybe hundreds of scores. You'd have hours of music in your mind. You'd never need to look at the piece of paper. All those hours would be in your mind. And you couldn't possibly be good enough unless you had done enough work to put all that music in your mind, so that you would just be able to sit down and call up note for note, some piece of Mozart or one of the classics of your profession. And his notion with me, because the way he put it is, he just said, you have eyes, so you better learn to use them. Instead of thinking of movies as print, which is the way they're always approached, it's a pile of paper. It's a list of events and words that will be spoken. Instead of thinking of movies that way, what he tried to, no, he did. He made me learn to think of movies as a chain of images, where you would fashion the entire chain of images. You just like a music student could hold a concerto in his mind, you should hold a movie in your mind, the images. Never mind the words, the images. Where was the camera for that shot? What kind of lens was it? What was the camera doing on every shot, on every one of... Well, most movies have about 1,000 shots. Kubrick's Clockwork Orange has very, very few. It's like 550 or something like that. It's like one of the fewest shots of any major movie.
So he was really looking at sort of the Hitchcock way of shooting, going through it already way ahead in your mind and kind of staying way ahead of the curve of visualizing it way ahead of what actually any filming was taking place. Is that correct or not?
Yes, but again, much of Hitchcock is a literary approach to it. It sounds like I'm denigrating him, which I'm not at all. But the Hitchcock notion of breaking the action and the events down into a specific chain of written shots of, he looks this way, we cut to the airplane circling behind him, we cut to the bird on the fence or whatever.
Well, how did that affect you?
That's the first step. That's the first step in what Kadar was talking about.
All right, now let's get to something that you were doing while you were working with your Czech, Mr. Kadar, who was one of your mentors, I suppose you'd call it. You also were working on a screenplay for your first movie, which was called Nomads. And now, for the new filmmaker, for those people out there that want to be filmmakers, could you just relate your experience from the first day you sat down to write Nomads until, and give them a time frame from the time you started writing it till the time that you actually started shooting it?
Oh, Lord. Okay, I started in the summer. I started as I finished at AFI. I figured that one of the best routes for a filmmaker to become a professional director is to write. Not because you want to be a writer, but because it's a way to advance your directing career. So I started the summer that I finished. That would have been 81, 82, 81. Wrote the screenplay. I think it got made in 85.
Were you happy with that film when you from your first day in 81, when you started writing it, in your mind's eye, what you wanted it to be, and at the end of it, when it actually was released, was that representative of what your initial thoughts were about that film?
Oh, probably. Now, but that begs the question, was I, from hindsight, happy with what my original thoughts had been? The answer to that is no.
Well, let me ask you this. This is another part of the film process that everyone has a tough time with, and that is actually filming it and getting it funded. How did you fund Nomads? How did that process make itself available to you?
I didn't fund it. One of the things that's particularly good about the American Film Institute is that it, for a few students each year, you get incorporated into the professional industry pretty much directly. David Lynch in the class in front of me, Ed Zwick and I in our class.
These are sort of ways to get a grant or a fellowship to get...
Well, no, you get the grant or whatever, you make a film, but after you've made the film, you're then treated almost as a professional. So that I got an agent immediately, and the agent sold the screenplay in the regular industrial pattern, sold it to an independent producer who funded small movies named Elliot Kastner, who has given a start to a lot of guys, I think.
So you, after some acclaim for Nomads as an independent film, you made one of the most, from a personal sense, the next film that you made was one of the most incredible. At the time that it came out, it was the most incredible B movie ever made. Actually, it was a fairly low budget. I'd like to kind of know what that budget was for Predator, but Predator was the most astounding surprise for everyone, because at that time Arnold was just out of Conan, and all of a sudden you take him and make him into this superhero, and it was just a spectacular movie. Stands today as one of the best sci-fi movies, a genius that was ever made.
Wow. Well, you're right that it was the intention was that it was